live. Oh, we're already live. I guess we can just go straight into it. Never mind. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, you are now listening to Love Bay Afrobeat Music Talk Radio. I am Sean Williams, aka the President. I am the host of the Safe Room Podcast, a safe space where entrepreneurs, business owners, and artists here in Toronto can share their personal and professional stories. Sorry for the delay, but if you guys knew about the behind the scenes, we don't want to get into that. We're here for our wonderful guests here today. And I'm excited to have this conversation with this guest. I met him back at I want to say like a holiday party, I believe we met back. So I mean, it was a couple months ago. And hearing some of the work that he's done, I was blown away. I thought, okay, eventually he's gonna come on the podcast. I don't know when or where, but it's going to happen very, very soon. He is a Toronto-based artist here, and he was born in Albania. So I'm very interested to hear his story of how he came from Albania here to Canada. Just him growing up, his heritage. But he started off first as a street dancer, but eventually he started to get into calligraphy. And his best way of putting it is trying to make the letters dance. I love that phrase, making the letters dance and using it to have different elements from ancient and modern lettering styles around the world based on his calligraphy. And it's not no conventional calligraphy, okay? We're talking legit. We're talking one of a kind calligraphy. And his whole purpose in terms of his craft is solely on the sublime language of movement, rhythm, emotion, synergy, which words may not express. As you can see, this guy is top tier. He's a wordsmith when it comes to his bio. That's why I had to read it out. Ladies and gentlemen, we have the one and only MEDEIO. How are you doing?
I'm doing real good. Thank you for that nice intro, and I'm excited to talk. I just had an art show recently, and I realized that I enjoyed talking more about the art than just letting people see it on Instagram. So I'm excited to exchange some words today.
Yeah, I'm excited too, man. And like I mentioned, we met back at a holiday party. It was for business in the streets right here in Toronto, man. And I remember you coming up to me. We had a really great conversation. It was the same night that I received a very nice award from Business in the Street. Shout out to Bits for one quick second. Shout out to
Shout
Bits.
out
Shout
to
out to
Bits,
Kyle.
100%. Shout out to Bits for letting me crash their Christmas party, because I don't have any of my own.
For sure, man. And we had a really great conversation, and I was really intrigued based on your story, the stuff that you were doing, especially how like you said you wanted to come on the podcast and you just wanted it to just be super raw and authentic. You wanted it to not feel like the conversation was being too jagged or people weren't getting to hear the real year. So I'm excited for this conversation. But before we get into the main stuff, before we get into the main course, we got to warm up with the appetizer. And what I mean by that, ladies and gentlemen, you know what time it is. We have to start with our hot seat segment. So, MEDEIO, I have 4 questions for you, and I just want you to answer them to your best abilities, okay?
All right.
Okay, perfect. So, question number 1, outside the work that you do, tell me something about yourself in 1 sentence.
Uh, Outside the work that I do, I I love trying things I shouldn't be trying, Like I love trying like a skateboard or something I just shouldn't be doing, you know what I mean? But yeah, I love taking a risk where I shouldn't.
I love that. I love that. You mentioned skateboarding. Honestly, I've never done skateboarding. I don't know if I have the guts to do something like that.
Yeah, if it looks cool, I'm like, hey, I gotta try it once.
I feel you. I feel you. Is there like anything else that you're thinking of trying, but you're just not sure, but you're eventually gonna say, I gotta take that risk?
I mean, honestly, I want to try surfing at some point. I think all the things I want to try are physical. Like uh, I climbed like a mountain for the first time, and I was wearing Pumas. Like I shouldn't have done that, but like it was a lot of fun. Like I'd do it again in a heartbeat. So I think I try surfing. Obviously, like, that's like you can't do that in Lake Ontario, but so it's in the bucket list.
I see. I see. I mean, that's definitely interesting to hear, man. And we're definitely gonna get to the interesting facts very soon. But let's go on to the next question. This is something I'm very interested on. So the second question, what is the longest calligraphy piece that you've made for a client? So when I say longest, I would probably say the longest it took you to create this piece, to complete it for one client. Maybe it's for like a group. Depends. It could be for an individual, for a group. What would you say was the longest piece that you had to, take your time on so far in your career?
Uh, what's one that's finished? I did these big like commercial spaces. That took me like 2 months. It should have taken me longer, but because it was in Edmonton and it's cold out there, I wanted to leave as soon as possible. But the longest so far right now is like a project I'm doing, and it's taking I'm probably on my like 3.5 months at the moment. It's probably gonna take another month to finish. Yeah. But like
Okay.
keep in mind these are like large scale, like I'm talking like multiple murals that like multiple offices and like big commercial space, right? So um yeah, I'd
Definitely,
say that's it.
definitely. Okay, I totally understand. I know stuff like that there requires a very long-term process from start to finish. But would you say like throughout all of that, it's still like a fun experience to, do these longer pieces in terms of the time that you have?
I absolutely, I think so. In terms of the fun part, I think the fun is that you get to really show off your capacity, and you get to show off your stamina, and like what you're able to do it just as one person. And I mean, the challenge of it is that like over time it starts to feel like a job because you got to keep going to this place and working and continuing to be consistent with a design that you've freestyled in the beginning, but now you're like, okay, well, I gotta maintain that same look, right? So, but I'd say I love the ability to like show off how much like kind of strength you have to create something of a larger scale.
I definitely agree on that. That's so true. Okay, all right, we're on a good roll right now. Let's get on to the next question. So the next question I have, an interesting fact that you rarely share about yourself.
Uh, so I this is kind of my part of my mental health routine too, But I love putting on I love putting on a stand-up comedy set at home, when I'm by myself because I like it hypes me up, and before I even can get to the bathroom, like I make sure I like sometimes I even stand in front of the mirror and like I just say the funniest things and I pretend like I'm actually putting on like a stand-up comedy show, and that puts me in a good mood, and then I move on with the rest of my day. So maybe one day I'll get on an actual stage.
I think we need to make that happen. Now that you share that, I'm now fully on your team to make this happen. MEDEIO live. We're just
Nobody
gonna.
knows that.
That is absolutely amazing. I love that. And it's so original too. I mean, I've had a couple of answers from different interesting facts, but I've never heard something like that. But I love how that's in your mental health routine as well. I feel like for a lot of us, we assume when it comes to mental health, especially the different routines we have, it has to be something super serious or like focus based. It could be something where it's like, what, I'm just goofing off. Sometimes I'll be straight up like, what, I will go in the washroom and I'll have a whole live concert with just my phone and my music, and I'll just be
You see?
blasted it.
Hey, everybody does it. Some admit it and some don't. I think that's the truth.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, I totally understand where you're coming from. And sometimes you just need some like laughter and joy in your mental health routine, and it's not a bad thing.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think it's one of the keys, especially as a creative or as somebody who's running a business. Like you need to kind of uh, practice, entertain your playful mind. You know what I mean? Um, and it helps you come up with better ideas. It helps you communicate with people better. And it makes you more enjoyable around, your clients or your friends or everybody. Like there's serious moments, but there's also moments where we got to be human. We got to have the full spectrum of all the emotions that we have available.
Definitely, absolutely. Okay, going to the final question for this hot seat segment. So, what is your personal safe room? So, basically, what is a safe space? And it could be physical, it could be mental, that allows you to be your authentic self.
Definitely around my core friends. You know, I've had the same. I've had the same friends for like, I'd say core friends. I've had the same for like almost 2 decades now, and it's you know, it's important to have a core friendship with certain people where you could openly speak about, you know, your life, and you know, you could all openly speak to each other about certain things with no discomfort, you know. And I'm also very blessed in a sense where the people that I'm around, I met them through art, I met them through creativity, and you know, we can talk about creativity and share and exchange things, you know, at the same time, you know. So I think that's very important because every weekend I'm around the same, at least once a week. I enjoy being around the same people that I trust the most, you know.
That's great to hear, especially how you mentioned that your core friends that you've had for almost 2 decades. That's deep. I only have one friend, one guy I've been talking since like elementary school, and everyone else, it's like I know them. I may talk to them a couple of times, but like they're not in my like inner circle like that. So being able to have like a group of people as your core friends, I think it's really great. I have a follow up question though. So again, all your friends are basically they love to have conversations around like the arts, like you said, like they're like have that same artistic mind like yourself. Do you feel that sometimes it kind of gets maybe tiresome if like, okay, we're always talking about art, let's talk about something different? Or do you feel like it's a good balance of like, okay, we'll talk about art, but then we'll talk about other things as well. So that way the conversation doesn't get stagnant at some point.
Well, I think like there's a bunch of unspoken rules, right, that we just naturally follow, and one of them is that, you know, like, hey, if we're out to have fun, like I don't want to hear about art. You know what I mean? Like if I'm on call, if I'm on the college strip at 1 in the morning, you know, like I don't want to. We're not talking about art, and like we have a very strict rule to on like talking about work. You know, like if we're all out to have fun, we know that. You know, we don't bring up like work problems or anything like that, right? So, and I think we like finally selected each other over the years, based on who can kind of, we call it spatial awareness, you know, just like understand where you're at and what to talk about, you know. So I think that's what's great is that, you know, we could be goofy, but then we can sit in the studio and do a couple things. You know what I mean? Like there's an environment for everything.
I love that. I absolutely love that. So true. Honestly, I'm the type of person, if I go out to an event and I'm trying to have fun, and the first words that you uttered to me is, so what do you do? Like, what's your business? I'm like, I'm walking away from you. I'm sorry. Like, I'm not
Seriously,
trying to do that.
it's real. Just like read the room, you know.
Yeah, read the room. I know there's people out there that are like, I don't want to like talk about my stuff. Like you can see me in the corner, I'm chilling, or like I'm on my phone, I'm trying to watch the game, or like I'm on
You're
social
unwinding.
media.
Yeah,
Right. You're unwinded. So
hundred
I
percent.
completely understand where you're coming from, Medeo, because I feel like some people they need to understand. It's not to say that listen, when the time is right and I need to big up my business, I will big up my business. But you also need to know, like, I can't be my own spokesperson 24/7 everywhere I go.
100%, man. You need time to be natural. You need space to, you know, just be yourself, you know, and and be around people that just appreciate you for who you are, you know, and not because you're working on a bunch of projects and you're doing a couple things. You know what I mean? So
Yeah. Yeah.
it's very important.
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, so yeah, that's all the questions I have for the hot seat segment. I think you did a really great job with the questions. I really like your answer to the interesting fact. That one got me excited. I'm like, yes, I love how he's like just embracing the joyfulness of just his mental health routine. The comedy. I'm telling you, like guys, by the end of the show, I'm gonna convince Medea like we're gonna get it done. We're gonna get it done. Okay, okay. Let's get into the main question. Before we get to the main questions, I know we came in and we started off hot, right? So I didn't give you the chance to like fully introduce yourself. I know I gave a little bio, but I know like for me, I can't do justice. I know I need to hear from the man himself. So Medeo, just quickly before we get to the questions, introduce yourself to everyone here listening on Love Bay Radio. Who is Medeo?
What's going on, everybody? My name is Medeo. I'm a Toronto-based artist, and I mean, there's a lot to explore today, but I think the main thing about me as an artist is that my motive is on the streets to the boardroom kind of mission, where I start from a kind of a graffiti background, and now I'm more into collaborating with other talent and seeing how far we could take it on a professional level. Um, and yeah, and I work hard, but I also like to have some fun along the way.
I love that. Love that. Okay. So getting into the first question, I do want to talk about some of the work that you do. Like you said, you will do like portraits, murals, all different kinds of like styles of graffiti and calligraphy, which I think is amazing. I did get to see some of your stuff on your website and it blew me away. I thought there is no way like someone like Medeo's doing all of this, but like it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. I think it's so inspirational because it makes me feel like, being able to see a piece like that, it's like, wow, like it just kind of gets your spirit up in a way, and it makes you feel positive about yourself. It makes you want to tackle a task that maybe you've been like holding on to, or it's like very daunting. So I just want to say, firstly, before I get into this question, it's like the work that you've done has been amazing and it's truly remarkable. Truly
I
remarkable.
appreciate it. Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, man. So the first thing I want to ask is what has become like the hardest part when it comes to creating these murals, these portraits, these different pieces of calligraphy? And also another question, like how does it tie into working in with clients who have these different requests. Maybe one client's like, you know what, I just want a portrait. Or maybe this client says, I actually want a full mural for our business, or I want to work with you because I'm thinking about having a piece at this location or at this intersection here in the city. Like, how would you say you've been able to overcome that? And like, what has been like the most challenging parts when it comes to the work that you've done so far?
Honestly, I'd say it's a matter of I think one of the hardest things has been communication. Uh, a lot of artists, like some artists, struggle with the creative part. Like they get nervous when they see a blank canvas. Like the only thing I'm nervous of is the CRA, and like I pay my taxes. So like I once I see a blank canvas, I'm happy to go free. Uh, but one of the hardest things I had to learn is how to communicate with clients and figure out ways to negotiate, maintaining my integrity and my desire to create something that is fulfilling to me, but also fulfilling to them. And I have to say they have a point too. Sometimes artists are like, "Oh, tell me about it. This client's so annoying," and it's like, no, like they have a point too, and they value certain things. And if they're commissioning you, it's important that you hear them out. And but it's also important that they also hear you out. And because at the end of the day, they hire artists to offer an authentic experience to themselves, to their guests, to their customers, if it's a store, or to whoever sees their branding, if they're a big company, right? So I'd say that's the hardest part, especially because first of all, school didn't teach us this, but also especially because I'm younger. I'm known as a younger person in the industry. The older people tend to think that they can, tend to think that I don't know the tricks on, manipulative kind of strategies on how to get me to do things, right?
Hmm.
So it took me a bit to learn, and it takes, sometimes some people will test you and see what your threshold is, and it took me a bit to learn how to be um, my own, really like my own entity and my own boss, and actually like show that, and put my foot down on certain things. So I'd say that's the hardest part.
Yeah, definitely for sure. I know when it comes to working with a client, there's always like that issue of, okay, yes, I have to kind of do what the client is asking for because that's what they're bringing me in. But at the same time, like you mentioned, it's important that they should hear about the artist or the one who's actually, giving the service to the client. Because I mean, you are bringing them in. It's important that you kind of hear them out, what they have to say, hear their expertise, which I think is super important. I feel like it's completely undervalued, probably from my standpoint, for the stuff that I do. I know sometimes people bring me in to do stuff, but then they don't ask the question about, oh, you know what? I kind of want to hear what he thinks. It's kind of like, no, I want this, I want that. And like, sure, don't get me wrong. I can help you get this and get that. But I do appreciate those clients who do ask me, hey, what do you think? Or like, is there things
Right,
that you want to add on? Because like obviously you know what's best because that's why I'm bringing you in. I think that's super
right.
important. I think it
You're
brings
the expert.
yeah, you're the expert. You have better relationships too, I feel, because now it's like
Yeah,
we're on the same wavelength. Now it doesn't feel like, okay, I'm just like a servant. Now it's like, okay, you say this, I do this. All right, then we're on our way. It doesn't feel genuine in terms of like afterwards once the thing is done. So I understand where you're coming from.
right. 100%. It's kind of like you sent me, you sent me a list of questions. I saw them, and I literally I was like, take it away. It's how you'd like to run it, and I trust you. So, it's just I think this is a good way of doing business. You know what I mean?
I appreciate
And
that.
those are good. Those are solid questions. So like,
I
yeah,
appreciate that. Honestly, sometimes I be telling myself like, I hope the questions are good because like I like sometimes I'm like, I don't know if I want to ask this, I don't want to ask that, but I do appreciate that. And even you mentioning sometimes for individuals who are coming into the industry, and then there's other individuals who's like, okay, they've been doing this for years and years, and they look at yourself and they're like, oh well, he's young, he couldn't know stuff like that. And I think there's
yeah,
like
yeah,
there's two sides of the spectrum to look at it. I think there are some people who have been doing it for a long time that when they see someone younger come in, it's that they want to challenge them, but it's because they want them to grow. And I think that's really great.
right,
But also, and I have seen this on my end, there are some that kind of push you to that point where they're thinking, oh, they actually don't know what they're doing and they're trying to just expose that individual. It's like, see, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. He's still not ready yet. So I feel like there's both sides of the spectrum of it, in my opinion. I feel like there's also those who try to challenge those upcoming artists to grow in their craft, but I also feel like there's some that just kind of want to gatekeep in a way, and I feel like it's unfortunate that I'm saying this, but I feel like it's still out there in a way.
absolutely. And the truth is, it's part of the game, and there's no point in being angry at why these kinds of dynamics exist, because there has never been a time in history where there hasn't been people like this. So I think it's more. I think one of the biggest things about business is that you're gonna have to learn how to deal with difficult people. It's part of the game, and I think the faster and the better you learn how to do it, the more you can then enjoy the rest of it, which are the parts that are fun, the parts that actually are fulfilling to you, and the people and the environments that you create for yourself. So to me, I don't see it as a chore. I see it more as a self-care process where you learn how to defend yourself when you need to, and then after you've done that, you have all this space and you've made all this way to do all the other fun parts of the job, which are the reason why you got into the business in the first place.
I love that. I absolutely love that. I love how you said that. It's like a self-care process. I think I'm gonna have to write that down in my notes just so that way I keep that in the back pocket. I love that,
So
Medea.
self-care doesn't stop at bubble baths, right? Like there's a little more to it.
That's a word right there. That's a word right there. Okay, perfect. For everyone who's coming in right now, we are having this fantastic conversation here with Medeo on the Safe Room podcast right here on Love Bay Radio. It's been a fantastic conversation so far. I want to get into your past, and you said you're a stage dancer. Now, I before I get into the deeper part of this question, I just have to ask, like how nice were you? How nice were you as a stage dancer?
So I breakdanced. I was doing breakdancing professionally for 10 years. Before like retiring, I competed in the world, like in some of the world finals. I was at one competition. I was in the top seven in the world. I represented Canada. Um, I think I could say that I was one of the first to internationally represent one of the first like dozen of people I think that I internationally represented Canada at the notorious IBE, which is like the world's leading breakdance competition. Um, till this day, me and my crew host events. I'm actually hosting. It's called World B-Boy Classics. It's another breakdancing event that's international, and the winner gets flown. Um, to continue competing. We throw a lot of events every year, and I'm still very heavily involved in the culture. I just don't compete anymore.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
nice to know. The fact that you used to compete, but you still want to like leverage that to give other people the opportunity to shine and everything. I think that's great. I think that's great.
That's still my home, but honestly, like it's like boxing. It's a young man's game, you know. Like you, I'm 32, and I think people in their early 20s, they're they require less maintenance to do way more, and I think it's more about supporting them, and giving them the right platforms and just watching them do the things that you can't do, and enjoying that. That's beautiful.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so the question I wanted to ask in relation to that, because like you said, now you're retired. So what was that transition like from being an international breakdancer now going into making murals and doing calligraphy? Like, how did that transition come about? Was this something that you kind of knew this was part of the plan? Like, if I was gonna retire, I had a contingency plan, or was it something that you took a pause and then calligraphy just came along the way, and that was just your new passion moving forward?
So first of all, it was a lifestyle choice. I really enjoyed, like I perform, like a lot of dancers, they make money off of performing, right? Performing, teaching, and managing entertainment, right? And I did all those things. I even like by the end of it, I performed at what is it, Rogers Center. It was like 40,000 people watching. It was a cool like end to my career as a performer. Who was in that show? I think it was like Kanye West, Pitbull, like a couple of people were like performing at that concert. Anyways, but I realized that I loved the culture of it, the underground culture of it, but it didn't suit me to, like be in a set in a movie, wearing like a Disney outfit and having to do like, you know what I mean? Like it just didn't suit the commercial stuff didn't suit me. So I realized like I need to put my creative outlet somewhere else. I was going to school for the arts and at the same time I always loved like graffiti culture, like it goes hand in hand with breakdancing because they're part of the same like hip hop culture umbrella, right? So um, I realized the next thing that I enjoyed was watching like really successful graffiti artists go big and like do commercial, do a lot of commercial projects and things. And I'm like, wow, like I'm like, this is the most gangster thing I've ever seen. Like these guys were notorious in the streets, and then they just went up and up and started working with like Nike and Louis Vuitton and all these. And I'm like, I want to do that. I love the contrast of like bringing something so grimy to like a high end place and really challenging the negative stigmas that society has for street art culture. So, anyways, that was one. Um, the second thing that was cool was that I was because of dance I was already experienced with like entertainment and doing some sort of business in the arts. I knew how to put events together. I knew how to kind of public speak and be in front of people because I wasn't shy. Like I used to be like an extreme introvert, by the way, but because I was performing on stage so much, I got used to being in front of people. So it was a good confidence builder. But the third thing, which was the hard part, was that it was a huge ego check, because when I was the dancer, like I I wasn't like the Michael Jordan of it, but like I could there are many people in many countries who know me through the community, and everywhere I went, like people were like, "Oh, like they're happy to see me," and like I was somebody, and people kind of they reassured me who I am, and reassured my talents and things like that. But then when you get into a new world, which for me was the arts, nobody knows me, and I wasn't used to like going into a gallery and like I know nobody. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
shout out to a few artists who were actually part of both worlds. And like Chris Perez, he's one of my friends. Like, it, I would go to galleries with him, or I'd run into him at like Miami Art Basel or something, and it would be cool because I have somebody to connect with, but he also knew the art world, so they would help me easily transition and meet people. So was that part of starting a brand from scratch? like it was kind of crazy for my ego because I was like, oh, like I'm nobody, you know. But over time you build it, just like I built it with dancing. Like I was nobody at one point, and I just slowly built it. You meet people, and things just snowball, right?
Yeah, definitely. I think that's just such a powerful thing that you said right there, because like I think for a lot of people have to realize even the most famous, notable names in the world today, they started off as nobodies. They started off as
Right.
people that no one knew about. When I got it started into podcasts, no one knew what I was doing. And mind you, like I was not even a social media type of guy. So when I got it started with my podcast, I got it started with social media. So it was literally a uphill battle, 2 for 1. I had to get myself equivalated with Instagram, TikTok, everything like that, as well my podcast. So now it's like when I walk into a room, everyone's like, "Oh wow, like Shon, it's been amazing to see the growth in you." Because I feel like 3 years ago, like I would have never seen your name pop up in my feed or in my mentions or whatever. But I've took the time to go out there, connect, and I think that's what's really good about Toronto. Toronto's just so much things out there that you can go to, whether it's an events, network, or just opportunities at hand. So I feel like that's super important for anyone out there listening. Just because, right now people aren't seeing you, it doesn't mean that no one's going to hear you and no one's not going to, connect to your story. Eventually, there's going to be a crowd that connects to what you have to do and what you have to say. And it's going to be a beautiful sight to see when people really start to appreciate the value that you bring.
It's true. And look how I met you. I went to crash a Christmas party, and you got an award. How many podcasts did you have an
Episodes.
award for?
Yeah, I think at the time being it was about like 110. Right now we're at like
Right?
125. So
And look how much consistency that is. That's 100, like that's crazy, and it's like, but you did that, and then you got an award, so it's like, and then your name just builds like that, right? And then I saw you there, and we connected, and it's just like it's just how things snowball, right? So yeah, when I heard
absolutely.
100, I was like, that's wild, like
I
I know what it
know.
takes.
Yeah, it takes a while, man. So I appreciate that. And yeah, like you mentioned, for a lot of people out there, it's just finding a rhythm. It's finding a rhythm in what you do, being able to stick to it, even through the ups and the downs. And I think for anyone out there, and since we were kind of talking about mental health and self-care, it's okay to celebrate, your wins. Because I feel like us when we're working, whether we're an artist, a creative, or an entrepreneur, we're so up about the failures, or like, oh, I gotta deal with this, or I gotta overcome this challenge. But we never take the time to pause and really reflect on the wins. So maybe, for example, Medeo, maybe you've had a couple of wins that you've had in your personal and professional careers, like taking the time to just acknowledge that. I know you probably done that yourself. I don't have to tell you that, but I know you probably take the time to say, hey, like I've done this. Let me take this
Yeah,
moment to sink in and be like, yo, let me appreciate that. Let me not just focus about, oh, everything's bad. I'm just gonna sulk here, complain, and cry. Just like, listen, there are times like, yeah, you'll have those hard blows to the gut and it will hurt.
yeah,
But then those times where like I had that amazing win, and it's gonna be so
right.
satisfying to like really share about it. So we have to start appreciating the wins that we have in life, because we won't get those chances again. We never know if we're gonna have the chance to wake up the next day. That's why I'm so grateful being able to wake up the next day, just thanking God that I'm here on this earth, being able to just do what I do what I love, because I never know when I'll be able to live to see the next day to do what I want to do.
100%. And I mean, the other thing is that, like, you know, uh, when you look online, everybody's winning. You don't know their real life because they're only posting their wins, right? So you're looking at that, and when you see a challenge, you're like, oh, like this stuff only happens to me, But it's like they're going through probably could be something worse, right? I always say, like, if you sit down with everybody on the table and everybody on the table that you envy, and everyone puts out their problems like their cards, you all put each other's problems. And then you could choose whether you want to exchange problems with somebody else. You'd probably want to take all your problems back and leave that table, because you don't know what people are dealing with, and some people, especially, they do a good job really hiding it, and for the wrong reasons because they want to look flawless. You know what I mean? So yes, I do my best, especially now, to not rush myself with hearing people's other people's ideas, or even comparing myself to somebody else, because after a while I've realized, like, for example, in the art world, a lot of the artists that I envied because they did so many murals and whatever, and the celebrities have their art. Now that I have a little more of a understanding and more of an ear to the game, like, I realized a lot of those things were done for free. Like, they just did those to look like things were popping, right? So I don't know. Like, you can't always just look at things. You can't look at the glitter and be like, this is gold, because it's not true.
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay. All right. I want to get into the next question. And I want to talk about you who, like I mentioned before, you were born in Albania and eventually you came here to Canada. I want to talk about how that process was. So I did actually get the chance to hear a couple of interviews from you online on YouTube. I believe you said that you moved to Albania when you or moved to Canada, excuse me, when you were 10 years old, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so, as a 10-year-old in that moment, what were you thinking coming into Canada saying, "Oh, okay, it's a new start, a new journey," and eventually when you got older, how were you able to, again, keep some of, I guess, your cultural background in the work that you do? Because I feel like for me as well, when I and to kind of just provide an example. So I was born here in Canada, but my background is Grenada, right? My parents were born in
Right.
the Caribbean. I feel like how I keep that in my, my content and my interviews is based off just the energy I bring. It's very loud and it's very
Right.
bright. When you go in the Caribbean, everyone you go around is saying good morning. Like that was just
Yeah,
a
yeah.
common thing. And it was never weird. If I would get a good morning now today in Toronto, someone would look at me crazy, be like, "What do you mean
Yeah,
good morning?" It would be so bad. So I feel like for me, just this bubbly energy comes from my cultural background in the Caribbean, where like everyone's just so loving and so warm. So I guess that's the same question I want to pose to you. Do you feel like when you got to Canada, like again, how was that transition like? But also in the work that you do right now, do you feel like you still have some of those cultural traits in maybe some of your pieces, or maybe how you connect with people, how you engage with other clients? Like how would you describe that in a way?
Honestly, I think our cultures connect a lot with the part of, being high energy and I'm sure hospitality is an important thing. People being welcoming is an important thing, and I think that's how I also am. That's how I kind of am from that, coming from that environment. Um, I came from a time where social media wasn't a thing, and not only that, but my country was still catching up because we came from 50 years of heavy communism. So we were just catching up with the rest of the world. So like I was I was playing in rubble all day, and sometimes we'd play soccer with like an empty water bottle, and but it's like I enjoyed that. I was never like, oh, we never had nothing, like I enjoyed the beautiful things, that the energy that I shared with people, and I think till this day, I think um, it's at the core of who I'm affiliated with, how I live, how I choose to live my life. Um, I try to stay away from like pretentious environments, and I think it just has to do a lot with me growing up and actually um, trying to have real relationships, and I think that's how I maintain my culture.
I love that. I absolutely love that because again, I think it's so important that no matter where we come from, you want to keep some part of that in every single thing that you do. So like I mentioned, I'm very very bubbly when it comes to meeting people. Like I will be the type of person to go in a room and if you get the chance to talk to me for about 5 minutes, I'll probably get all your contacts and everything like that because that's just how engageful I am. I just feel like
Right,
we're all here on this planet. Eventually, our time will go. I don't want
right.
to be that where if we're having a conversation, it just doesn't feel like I'm not giving all of me as you wish. So I feel like I just want to do my best. It's like, hey, and listen, I'm not trying to say afterwards we all have to be buddy, buddy, buddy. Because sometimes
Yeah, yeah.
you may not be looking for someone like that. Maybe someone is going through a rough day and they'll
100%.
go out to an event and then they meet someone and they say, oh, you know what, I had a really good conversation with this person, and maybe it gets the gears going to where they were going through a slump, and now it's
Mm,
motivated them to, okay, I want to get back on track. And that just happened because you went out and someone was able to give you the time and need just to hear what you have to say, or maybe vent, or just get to know each other. Sometimes I go to events and sometimes I'm not always there trying to connect with people. Sometimes I'm just there minding my business, and then I'll meet someone and their energy is really great, and it's like, wow, it's amazing. Like, I really love how this person is just like doing their thing, and like they're giving me like motivational stuff to hear. And now I go back home and now it's like, you know what, that one thing I was delaying, I actually want to work on that now. I actually want to put that into
right.
motion. And it's like, wow, that all happened because I went out. It's not like, oh, now I gotta connect with 50,000 people and make 50,000 friends. It's like, no, maybe if you do meet
Yeah,
someone
yeah,
that you like, it's like, okay, like, all right, we're buddy. I'll call you the next day. We'll see what goes
yeah.
happen. But not all the time that needs to be the case. I feel like it's always important to have really good human communication in a way where we're all just trying to like build each other up. Just like get us back on the right track in a way.
Right. No, I totally agree with you, and I feel like, as you said, like having meeting with one, two people and the conversation has traction, I think that's a lot more effective than just having surface conversations with many more people, but not really connecting with them.
Yeah, definitely, man. I think that's super important. All right. Okay. Again, for people coming in, you're listening to the Safe Room podcast here on Love Bay Radio. We're here with MEDEIO, a Toronto based artist. We've been having a very, I want to say intellectual, but also very deep conversation, but in a good way. It's not like super
Yeah,
deep
yeah,
or we're off track,
100%.
but it's it's like very passionate. Very passionate. Okay, I want to get a little bit more deeper into your work, right? So, how has, the craft that you've created allowed you to work with so much different people? Because I know you've worked with, individual clients, you've worked with different, businesses and everything like that. And again, feel free to plug all the businesses you worked with. One thing about the Safer, we're all about giving the flowers to our guests. So if you want to go off and be like, yeah, I work for this a company, I work for it, go ahead, Medea. We're gonna give you that time. But I definitely want to ask you, just how has your craft allowed you to collaborate with so much people across the city, and some at some points maybe using some of your pieces as like symbolic representations for what the business is looking for, what a person is looking for. Like, how would you say your craft has affected the people you've worked with, but also being able to connect with those individuals as well?
Honestly, I think over time, I got good at learning how to get people to trust me, um, because doing some like I show up like this, I'm dressed like this, I'm not wearing like a button up or anything, right? So but the thing is, all these companies, I've worked with like Porsche, um I've worked with Bank of Montreal, and these are companies that are a bit more like what's the word, like they could be uptight to an extent, especially like the banks, I've worked with like Modelo, Heineken, what other brands? Um, just a bunch of different, like a bunch of different, like I mainly focus on brands. I work with Speedy, which is like one of North America's most respected transport companies. Um, and the thing is, because my generation's getting older, so now people of my generation in their late 20s, early 30s to mid 30s are the people that actually grew up around like, hip hop music and certain kinds of cultures and pop music. So what these companies are doing to get people to connect with them is they're trying to get rid of the whole sterile look of like just putting logos and billboards, and they're like, let's actually show humans that we care, or like Samsung, right? So for Samsung, for example, like I I offered, they have a new phone, the Z Flip, and I said, let me draw on the phone, put me at your launch event, and I'm just gonna draw on the phone, and it shows people the versatility of the phone to the extent of an artist using it, and then people will come up to me and I'll draw their name in graffiti on the phone, and then I'll use their not I'm not allowed to say airdrop, but I'm gonna say it anyways because yeah, they have their own file transferring system that's just as convenient. And I was like, now I can send that to their phone, so I could show that file transferring system too, right? So it's like I'm always thinking of ways to like use my skills and use my edge, my creativity, but also mesh it with their company values, right? Now, there's another thing that obviously we both have to align in terms of certain values and morals and motives, right? Um, I'm not willing to just work for anybody. There's been a lot of companies that I'm not like, I didn't find the alignment with. Um, Especially if they come asking for certain things that are out of my, out of my range of that are not on brand. But then there's been companies who are super great, they're just literally they're like, do what you want, you know. They're like, let us know the budget, do what you want, you're free to go. We would like for you to be yourself, and by you being yourself, it represents us in the best way possible, So I think I think that's what kind of sets me. I try to be set apart from a lot of the other conventional ways of doing art in terms of like, let's say you're gonna do a canvas and and then go to the galleries and do that system. Like I'm kind of creating jobs as I go.
Yeah, I definitely feel that. And I think one conversation that I've heard from a lot of artists as well is just the conversation around compensation. Cause I know that's always a thing where artists have to, depending on the situation, they may have to fight to be compensated for the work that they do. But I know there's also that side of the spectrum where some artists realize that if I want to be able to get to that stage of getting compensated, I have to kind of put in the work where there might be a couple of stuff I do that is like free and everything like that. So I guess one thing I want to ask you, like, were you able to kind of live both sides of the spectrum where like you started off and at first you said, okay, like I'm not being able to reach the compensation that I'm desiring because I'm like might be
Mm.
doing it for free or for a lower cost. And then eventually when you were starting to, get more traction within, the stuff that you did, that you start to see that compensation and like also have you taken the chance to probably share with other individuals who might be struggling to find that pathway of like getting the compensation that they deserve.
Honestly, like every day I strive to, every day I strive to raise the price even more. I don't think I'll ever stop raising the price. Um, and the thing is, it's not about randomly just adding the numbers. You have to justify it, right? So I understand that at the beginning of my career, my price was nowhere near what it is today. And that's because I didn't have a portfolio. So who's gonna trust me? Like why would somebody want to pay me $60,000 when I have nothing to prove? Like I could blow the whole project, right? So um, the thing is, I did a few free things. I did a lot of low paid things. I did a lot of bartering. I think bartering was like the main thing that helped me a lot. For example, if it's a marketing company and they want like a mural, and they're like, "Oh, we just started as a marketing company. We don't have all the budget." I say, "All right, well, you could pay me half, and then the other half give me a return of service, right? Like make my website or something, you know." Or if it's like I don't know, like a early career lawyer, right? And it's like, hey, I really need a painting from you, like, and I say, okay, well, let's say it's worth X dollars, they can't meet that fee. Then I'm like, okay, well, in return, can you draft my contracts? So I was doing things like that, and I think that really helped me build. Um, and I only my price only goes up based on the things that I'm offering, right? So if I've worked with some people where I know that they have bigger budgets, so then I just offer more premium service. Like, do you want your stuff gold leafed in 24 karat gold? Like, it's gonna cost like 4 times more than regular paint, but if you have the budget, that's great. But I'm not just gonna be like, oh, like, here's Drake, and I'm just gonna crank the price to 30,000 just because, like, when I sell it for 3,000 to the regular, because you gotta have integrity and you have to have justification, right? So um, that's kind of how I've raised my price, and also over time, um, as your portfolio grows, people start to trust you because they're like, okay, well, he's done this, 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 this. Clearly, people are keep calling him back, so that means he's not a headache. he's easy to work with, right? So these big companies, like they do not like hiccups. You know, they already have managers and bosses breathing down their neck, and the last thing they need is for their idea of hiring an artist to be a screw up, and then you know, like it puts them in jeopardy, right? So when they see that you're reliable, it gives them a lot of relief, you know, and I think being a relief will always be a great way to continue to raise your value and your price, because sometimes when people are stressed, they'll pay anything to like get you to do things properly the way they want it, right? So it's you get what you pay for, you know? Like you pay more, you know, if you have $2,000 to buy a car, you can buy a used one. But if you have, you know what I mean, like $200,000, you can buy a Range Rover. You know what I mean? Like you pay for reliability, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. I love how you provided that Drake example because I feel like all entrepreneurs are kind of guilty of that. I feel like once you're working with a high tier client, that we tend to break that moral rule of like, well, I know I charge like 2K for this, but since I'm working with
It's
like
just not
Beyonce, it's
honest, you
like
know. And this, listen, this Toronto, you know, Toronto looks like a big city, but it's a small city, you know.
it's
And you
pinch.
don't know, you know, especially in business and niche businesses, tiny city. So like, you don't know what happens, and you find out, you know, like they'll find out, and they'll come back to you and be like, or they won't even come back to you. They won't call you again. And
Yeah.
next thing you know, they're out there saying that you know you don't have integrity, right? And they have a right to do that, you know, because you didn't. So why do that? You know, just offer more, better premium options. Like if somebody has crazy dollars, I'll be like, I will diamond encrust this. You know, like you know what I mean? Like, but I'm not just gonna give you the regular service that everybody else gets, and then but then charge you like crazy dollars. You know, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah,
It's kind of,
yeah.
at least to my moral, it's kind of like theft. You know?
No, I agree with it too. I think it's very, very important that you keep those morals intact because, like you mentioned, I feel like once we see like that top tier clients or we work with high end businesses, we tend to charge, but then we forget like, oh wait, what is the actual justification for me increasing this service? Because like there's now additives, or there's things that I can add on to, or is it just more of like, well, I'm working with a big client, so they got money. So if I can just raise my price, they will spend it for me. But like you mentioned, there will be people that they're not afraid. They will call you out. They will use their platform to say like, "Hey, like this guy over here is charging me way more when like his regular clients get this price." If that's the case, then I don't know if you should be, connecting with this individual. Now it hurts your brand because now your reputation's been jeopardized.
Right, right. It's just it's not. I don't know. For me, at least, I'm not really into. It's just not in my own moral. It's not even about like what people
Listen,
say. You know?
you and me were in the same boat. You are not
Yeah.
alone, Medeo. I am the same individual. I don't care. Listen, I love
We
a
don't
lot of
come from
artists.
that type of culture. You know?
Right. Listen, I understand this. I love Beyonce. If she drops in
Yeah.
my doorstep, she's like, "Hey, Sean, I need you to launch a podcast." I'm not gonna be like, "I need 1 mil. I need 1 mil on the like, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not gonna do that. It
Yeah.
just makes no sense. No sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I mean, if you want to make a mill, which is a great idea, right? Who doesn't want to make that? Um, you just got to get creative on how you can actually earn it. You know, hey, we need a media team. We need, you know what I mean? Like, you know, we need a bigger studio to record things. We need a director. We need, you know what I mean? Like how do we platform you better as a musician, right? Like just start thinking of ways to actually make the bill $1 million. You know what I'm saying? Like and which makes sense, you know,
Yeah.
like so it's justifiable, right? So, I mean, that's what we're in the game for. Like, I'm always looking for a client that you know has the budget to give me the freedom to create the things that I want. You know, I have a lot of crazy ideas, and but those ideas need budget, to be honest. You know, so like I'm always looking for somebody who's willing to who aligns with the way I create and my values, and has
Hmm.
the has the means to collaborate, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, again, for people coming in, you're listening to the Safe Room here on Love Bay Radio here with Medeo. Just taking a look at the comments. We got a comment from Chanel. All right, my sister's in here. We love to see that. Appreciate the
Hey, Chanel.
transparency, insightful conversation. Yeah, thank you so much. It's a very insightful conversation. I feel like if for everyone listening, you might have to go back and like grab your pens and your notepads and start writing stuff because we are dropping gems in this episode. All right. that's basically all the questions I have. But before we wrap up, I do want to have one quick activity with you, if that's
Okay.
okay. Okay. Now again, since you are an arts aficionado, I want to try something where you have to guess the image, right? But
Okay.
to make it a little bit harder, I'm going to be zooming in on the images so that way, like, it won't become like as easy. So
This is gonna be tough.
I only have 3 photos, so it goes from like level like it's easy to like hard. But I feel like
Alright.
the last one, I feel like the
Hopefully,
last
this is
one.
not like art history stuff, because like honestly, man, I didn't do good in school, so but we'll
Oh,
see.
okay, honest, I will say this: if you don't
Yeah.
get the last one, I think we
Hmm.
might have to delete this episode. To be honest, I think we might have to
All right.
delete.
All right.
Okay, all right. Let me just pull it up on my phone, and I just want to make sure that you're able to see it because I'm using the green screen right now. So like,
Yeah.
all right, okay. So here's the first one.
Oh,
This
Mona
is
Lisa.
okay. Okay,
Yeah,
you
it's
got it.
by Leonardo DiCaprio.
Okay, okay. That's extra bonus point for
I'm
knowing
playing.
the. All right, perfect. Honestly, I'm like, okay, he has to get this one because I feel like that's an easy one. All right, here we go. Here's the next one.
CN Tower.
It is the CN Tower. It is the
All
CN
right,
Tower.
sick, sick, sick.
Okay, 2 for
All right,
2. Do you think you're gonna get the last one?
all right.
Do
I
you
think
think
this
you're
is
gonna
gonna be
get
the
it?
hard one. I think this is gonna be the hard one.
Okay. Here's the last one.
Oh, that's my yeah. Bank of BMO. It's like a BMO logo I did.
Yeah, it is the VMO. So this is beautiful, man. When did you create this one?
I did that. I actually did that as a sketch before we did the actual mural. If anybody is by the beaches area, it's their BMO Beaches branch. I did all the murals in the inside. You're welcome to go check it out whenever it's open.
Yeah, and and like just another quick question, like because I know you said you've done a lot of murals. Like, do you have like an estimate of like how much you've done so far, and like maybe you have like recommended spots you would have some people in the city in Toronto to probably go check out?
Uh, I'd say okay. So Slayer Burger. There's a location on Queen and Broadview area, and there's a new one at Davisville and Young. It's a burger joint. Uh, they're I've done both of them interior and exterior, so those ones are cool, and he's a great client. Um, this BMO project, um, and then this summer I'm gonna have one at Slice of Life, which is it's a nice smaller high end bar in Bathurst and College. So be on the lookout for that. I think if you've seen my style, it's very clear to be able to like see where my work is. But that's another one. And there's one in Chinatown. That was a public piece. I'm sorry, I forgot the I
It's
forgot
all
the
good.
location. Yeah.
It's all good, but like those are good recommendations. I'm definitely gonna have to. Anytime I'm going out, I'm gonna have to keep those locations in mind and be like, all right, Medeo, I see you. I see you with the pieces and everything like that. All right, but that's good. That's good. This is basically all the questions I have. So I think that's it. Medeo, I just want to say thank you for coming on to the Safe Room Podcast. I've enjoyed this conversation so much. Appreciate your time, your wisdom, just your energy overall, man. Thank you for coming on.
Hey, thank you, and I appreciate this because I think it's really important for artists to be able to speak and share more than just the visuals, because sometimes we only see each other through social media, right? Especially nowadays, and what you're doing here is beautiful because it's giving people the ability to extend past their art and help people. Kind of share their thoughts. So thank you for that, bro. Like I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Where can people find you or contact you on social media?
You can find me at my Instagram underscore Medeo, so MEDEIO underscore again. Through there, you'll find everything, my website and YouTube and everything else.
Yeah, please, if you're on social media. This is not an issue where like you have to be in Toronto. I'm talking to everyone listening here. If you're on social media, go follow MEDEIO. Go check out his work. I'm telling you, you will not be disappointed. If you are in the city of Toronto, hit up MEDEIO. If you're looking for a piece, a portrait, anyone out there, he is your guy. He is the number one guy for the job. So
Thank
again,
you, Shon.
MEDEIO. Yeah, check it out right now. Incredible work. Yeah, listen, one thing about my
Thank you.
sister, she's gonna be the biggest supporter in here, and I love that. I
I
absolutely
love
love it.
that. That's
You know what?
dope.
Since we're,
Yeah.
I don't know if I want to say it, but Medea, I know you mentioned that you were a break dancer, but my sister, she's also a dancer as well. So
Oh, sick.
yeah, so we might have to get that collab going soon. We might have to get that collab going. I
You see?
apologize, you know.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but I had to say it. My brain was
No,
like, I
no,
got.
that's sick. You see, it's good to connect with people, man. And honestly, I was just thinking this whole interview. I'm so glad I crashed that Christmas party, man. Look what happens. You know?
Absolutely. Okay. Thank you again to ladies and gentlemen for listening to the Safe Room Podcast here on Love Bay Radio. If you want to check us out on Instagram and TikTok, we're at the Safe Room Official. If you want to check out any of our previous episodes, go to Spotify or Apple Podcasts, type in the Safe Room, and you can find all our episodes there. We'll be back here again next week, Thursday, listening to your favorite podcast. But again, thank you so much, everyone listening. Thank you again to MEDEIO, and we'll see you guys next time.